Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about a very interesting subject. I want to talk about how we can inherit trauma and how the trauma from another person can affect so many aspects of our life. So, let me tell you a story. Imagine a dairy farmer about 3 or 4 generations ago. He has a good life, a successful business. His farm is great. He has a loving wife, beautiful children, and life couldn't be better. Then, all of a sudden, his wife dies. And he can't get over the loss because he loved her so much. He starts to drink and he starts to gamble. Then, one night, when he's playing poker with others, he had too much to drink and he gambles away his dairy farm with one hand of cards. Now, just imagine what must have happened the morning he woke up sober and he realized what he had done. Out of the sheer grief or loss of his wife, he now also gave away the rest of everything he owned. Suddenly, he had no business, he had no home, he had no source of income, he had nothing where his children could live, he had nothing he can pass on to his children. Imagine what must have gone through his mind: the shame, the guilt, the grief, the mere thought that life is so unfair. Not only taking his wife, but even his livelihood, everything he worked so hard for. Now, imagine his children. They now have to completely change their lives. They have no idea where they're going to live. They have no idea where the next meal is going to come from. They have to start figuring out what else they can do because they were preparing to take over their father's farm one day. But now this is gone. So now they may also blame their father for gambling away their home, gambling away their future. And all of a sudden, life just seems too hard to handle. That story actually happened. That story is from one of my ancestors. And this farm actually still exists and it's being run by the family who won it from him. Now, you see that for my family, whenever they pass by this farm, it's like a constant reminder of what we used to have and what was taken from us by one ancestor who was struck by grief and went down a wrong path. Now, this trauma from him was never released. And that in itself shouldn't really matter to us, but for one way, he's passing this on to his children because his children now have to suffer through his trauma because he got completely changed. He sees the world as this horrible, evil place and instills this belief, this limiting belief in his children. And they pass that on to their children and further and further. To be honest, I would have to do more research into my family tree, but I don't think anyone really had a successful business that just worked for other people. I think I'm the first in a long line who decided to have their own business. I think I'm the first in a long line to write a book, you know? So, in essence, I'm the one who's going to break this pattern because I refuse to believe that life is difficult. I refuse to believe that life is out to get us. But you see, the belief that life is unfair was passed on from generation to generation because this belief was instilled from the farmer to his children. Now, this is just the direct lineage of how we take on limiting beliefs from our ancestors. And this is something we can still trace. I mean, this was 3 to 4 lifetimes ago, not that long ago. I mean, not lifetimes, I mean generations. So this can still be traced back. But what if something happened 16, 25, 50 generations ago? We don't even know what happened, but we still have those limiting beliefs carrying on through our ancestral line. Now, this is just the direct connection, but there's also the trauma on an energetic level, because trauma is multidimensional, just as we are. Trauma does not only take hold in the physical, but also in this mental, emotional, and spiritual body. And it stays in there and it festers. And it is being passed down through our DNA into the next generation, unless we decide to make it stop. And this is so fascinating. I love this subject because on my healing journey, I've unearthed so many limiting beliefs and triggers that I had from my ancestors and from my past lives. Now, to do that, I had to really understand where they were coming from. I had to actually figure out how to figure out how to get there and understand that. And I use the Akashic Records. For those of you who don't know what the Akashic Records are, it's like a little crash course. You can imagine the Akashic Records to be a library up in the clouds that holds all the information of every life you ever lived. So it's like every soul on this planet has their own records room filled from floor to ceiling with books, with pamphlets, with scrolls. And each of them hold information to what you've been through and what your soul still has to go through. So, and there you can look for answers. Let's say you have a limiting belief around, oh God, I don't know, not being good enough. But your parents never taught you this way. They always encourage you to be proud of yourself, to strive for what you want in life. So the feeling of not being good enough wouldn't fit, but you still have that. So you will go into the Akashic Records. I use my pendulum, and then I go in and ask if this issue of not feeling good enough is a present life issue. If the answer is no, I ask, is it a past life issue? If I get a no, then I say, is it an ancestral issue? And I get a yes. Okay. And then I search further from which branch, mothers, fathers, it's coming from, and why, when it happened, and so on and so forth, to understand what happened. And then I, through the Akashic Records, release it, which means I release the trauma so that my son will not take this on. And I love this practice because there's so much that we carry around with us that's not even ours to have, but we're forced to carry it on because generations past weren't able to release that trauma. So ancestral trauma and how we receive it is very interesting. And I've designed a course where I teach you exactly the steps how you can unearth your ancestral and past life trauma and release it. And the course is called Living a Soul Aligned Life. You can find all the information on my website, riseaboveyoustory.com, and I will leave the link to all the info below. And I can't wait to get started and teach you how you can release all the trauma that's not your own to really make your life so much better than it already is. All right, I hope you enjoyed what I was rambling about today. And if any questions, please leave them in the comments or message me directly, and I'll talk to you soon.